I get it when you're hunting for a compact PC you see a handful of cheap mini boxes on sale for under $100 and think, great, I'll save a ton and still get decent performance. Then a month later you're watching a game stutter, your video editor throws errors, and you're scrambling for a new GPU that actually fits. That regret is the exact opposite of what I was hoping for when I first stumbled on the Intel NUC 12 Enthusiast from Geek Plus. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What makes this little beast different is that it doesn't try to be a budget-only device. It's built around a 12th Gen i7-12700H, a full 32 GB of DDR5 RAM, and an ARC A770M graphics module that's tucked into a chassis you could comfortably fit on a bookshelf. The first question I asked myself was, can a mini PC really hold its own in a modern game or a lightweight creative workflow without turning the room into a fan-noisy sauna? I spent a weekend setting it up as my primary machine for a mix of gaming, photo editing, and day-to-day office work, and I'll walk you through what actually happened. Let's start with the desk footprint. The NUC's footprint is roughly the size of a large hardcover book, which means you can slot it behind a monitor or in a tight home office corner that would normally only accommodate a router. That space-saving factor is the biggest draw for anyone who already has a full-size desk or lives in a small apartment. The real test, though, is whether you can connect all the peripherals you need. This model comes with 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, 6 USB 3.2 ports, HDMI 2.1, and a 2.5 gigabits Ethernet jack. I was able to plug in a 4K monitor, a mechanical keyboard, a USB-C mouse, a USB-C external SSD, an Ethernet cable for stable gaming, and even a small external audio interface for podcasting, all without needing a dock. If you're the type who likes to keep a clean desk with a single cable run, the Thunderbolt ports are a lifesaver because you can daisy-chain a monitor, storage, and a capture card through one connection. Thermals are where many mini PCs stumble, and the NUC 12 surprised me in a good way. The unit uses an integrated vapor chamber cooling solution that, on paper, sounds like a lot of hype. In practice, while the system was pushing 4.5 GHz on the i7 during a stress test in Cyberpunk 2077, the fan settled at about 2,500 revolutions per minute and the chassis stayed around 70 C. That's warm but not enough to trigger thermal throttling, and the acoustic profile was more of a subtle hum than a grinding whine. During a 2-hour streaming session of a 1080p game with OBS running, the fan noise never rose above a level that would drown out my own microphone. If you work from home and need a quiet environment for calls, this is a big plus. Now on to performance for the everyday tasks you actually care about. Booting into Windows 11 Pro felt instantaneous thanks to the 1TB PCIe 4.0 SSD, and opening Adobe Lightroom with a 15 gigapixel catalog took under 10 seconds. Rendering a 1080p video in Premiere Pro at 30 frames per second was comparable to what you'd get from a mid-range laptop with a dedicated RTX 3060. For gaming, the ARC A770M handled titles like Fortnite and Valorant at 1080p with high settings comfortably above 100 frames per second. More demanding games like Elden Ring ran at a respectable 55 frames per second on medium-high settings, which is decent for a device that doesn't even have a full-size GPU slot. If you're primarily after a machine that can juggle a few creative apps and still game a few nights a week, the NUC hits that sweet spot. Upgrade ease is often a blind spot for mini PCs, but the NUC 12 makes it surprisingly simple. The bottom panel lifts off with just a couple of screws, revealing 2 RAM slots and an M.2 slot. Upgrading from the stock 32 GB to 64 GB was a matter of swapping out the sticks, no need to disassemble a complex cooling shroud. The SSD is also user replaceable, which means you can start with the 1TB drive and later add a second M.2 for a RAID setup if you ever need more storage. The only limitation here is that there's no room for a discrete GPU upgrade. The ARC A770M is soldered onto the board. So if you anticipate moving into heavy 4K rendering or VR, you'll eventually outgrow this machine. Who should buy this? If you're a creator who values a clean workspace, needs solid 4-core productivity, and enjoys occasional gaming sessions, the NUC 12 is a pragmatic choice. It shines for photographers, video editors working on 1080p TO 4K projects, and streamers who don't need 4K 60 frames per second gaming but still want decent graphics power. It's also a great fit for students or professionals who travel light but still want a desktop-class experience. Just pack it in a carry-on, plug it into any monitor, and you're set. Who should skip it? If your primary use case is a AI title marathon at ultra settings, or if you rely heavily on GPU-intensive